Hey, what's going on there? Welcome back to another episode. And tonight we have an all-new story for you from Skinwalker Ranch. These are just some of the most terrifying stories from the infamous ranch that really leave you questioning reality. So let's get into it. Story No. 1 is entitled The Orb. The first time I visited Sherman Ranch, we went out in the middle of the night with some friends. We were out looking for anything that could possibly be out there. That was when I saw my first orb. It appeared about 200 yards away in front of us. It was hovering just above the ground, shining like a bright white. As we approached it, the light grew brighter and brighter until it was blinding. Once we got close enough, we stopped. None of us wanted to get too close to this strange light in fear that it would do something to us. It continued to hover for a few minutes before it shot straight up into the air and disappeared into the darkness. Well, I had another experience at Sherman Ranch in February 2017. I was driving down a dirt road when all of a sudden I saw this same bright white light. This time it was coming from inside the barn. I jumped out of my car and ran over to the barn. It was big enough for me to crawl through, so I did. On the other side was a huge opening where I could see a bright light coming from outside. At first it looked like a hole in the side of the barn, but after a few seconds, I realized it wasn't really a hole at all. It was the same orb I'd seen before. It was sitting on the ground, just outside the barn. As I watched it, it rose into the air and flew over my head. It hovered for a moment and then started to move fast, like it was trying to get away from me. I chased after it, running full speed across the field. But no matter how fast I ran, it always stayed just out of reach. Then it just stopped and disappeared. It's hard to describe how amazing this experience was. It was one of those moments that makes you feel so small and insignificant. You realize there are things in this world that we can't explain or understand. I don't know what this thing was, but whatever it was amazing. Story No. 2 is entitled Mysterious Cabin. My family and I bought a home near Sherman Ranch. Since we moved in, weird stuff has been happening. One of the most bizarre occurrences was the appearance of a cabin. One day my son and I were playing in the backyard when he said, "Look, a house." He was pointing at a spot in the field behind our property. We walked over to check it out. When we first saw it, we thought it was a mirage, because it looked like a house in the middle of nowhere. There were no roads leading to it, and it wasn't on any maps. My husband and I went back later to try to find it again, but we couldn't. It almost felt like a dream. The next day, my son and I went back out to look for the mysterious cabin again, but it was gone. We checked all around the area, but there was no sign of it whatsoever. We never saw that cabin again. I don't know if it was real or if it's still there, but one thing I do know is that I woe and be spending many more nights in that house. Story number 3 is entitled Loud Crashes and Strange Lights. In July of 2016, I was at Sherman Ranch working on a documentary film about the paranormal activity on the property. At approximately 4 a.m., While setting up cameras in the equipment shed, I heard what sounded like loud crashes in the forest nearby. At first, I assumed they were made by animals. However, as the night wore on, the noise continued unabated. Frustrated and tired of hearing these sounds, I decided to go investigate. As I stepped outside, I noticed bright blue and green lights hovering over the tree line. I stood there watching them for a few minutes, mesmerized by their beauty. Suddenly, the lights began to move swiftly across the sky. I followed their path as they flew in erratic patterns, moving faster than any aircraft I've ever seen. They disappeared into the darkness beyond the ranch. I returned to the shed shaken by what I had witnessed. Just then, I heard a loud crash that seemed to come from directly beneath my feet. Startled, I turned to face the noise and saw two glowing orbs floating above the ground. One was white, the other blue. They seemed to rise slowly and majestically into the air, then vanished into the darkness. I continued filming throughout the night, capturing strange sounds and images on camera. The experience left me feeling deeply unsettled and convinced that Sherman Ranch is a place of great mystery. Story number 4 is entitled UFO Spotted. I was working the night shift at a local hospital when my mother called me. She told me she was visiting her friend who lived near Sherman Ranch and had seen something really strange. She described seeing a disc-shaped object hovering over the trees near the ranch. The craft was silent and didn't appear to be moving. My mom told me it looked like it was made out of metal and had a bluish tint to it. My mom said she watched the object for a few minutes before it suddenly shot into the sky and disappeared. She said she had never seen anything like it before. I told my mom to send me the exact location where she saw the object so I could go check it out for myself. I drove out to the area and started searching for the alleged UFO landing site. After a while, I found some strange markings in the dirt that looked like they had been made by a large disc. There were also some strange blue lights in the surrounding trees. I knew this must have been the spot my mom had seen the UFO here. I spent several hours searching the area for evidence of extraterrestrial activity, but didn't find anything else. Disappointed, but still excited about what I had discovered, I took some pictures of the strange markings and blue lights. Later, I posted the photos online and asked people to share their thoughts on what they could mean. Some people thought it was a hoax, while others believed there may be more to the story. I'm still not sure what happened out there that day, but I will never forget the experience. All right, now it's time to move on to our final story. And story no. 5 is entitled A Very Scary Experience. I was camping out with a group of friends at Sherman Ranch when we had a very scary experience. We were sitting around the campfire telling stories when suddenly we heard a loud crash in the forest nearby. We all looked up and saw a large, dark shape falling from the sky. It landed in the trees with a loud thud. My friends and I were terrified and didn't know what to do. We started screaming and making tons of noise to scare whatever it was away. The commotion in the trees quickly came to a halt. Maybe it was just an animal. We thought we were safe. Suddenly, we heard heavy footsteps approaching our campsite. We froze in fear as the footsteps got closer and closer. Suddenly, a huge, dark figure emerged from the trees. It was tall and muscular, almost like a giant humanoid creature. It took a few steps towards us, then suddenly turned and ran off into the forest. We were all traumatized by what we had just experienced. We packed up our things and left the campground in a hurry. To this day, I'm not sure what that creature was, but I will never forget its muscular arms and dark, menacing form. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave us a thumbs up and subscribe for more. And if you want to submit a story, click the link in the description below.